Hey there, comic book fans. I am back from the comic shop again this week. And back to my regular week. No 11 comics. I got 5. 3 True Believers, 2 regulars. But what didn't come in for me this week was the new Terry Moore 5 Years issue. It took him an extra week to get in number 1, so I guess the same thing's happening with number 2 for me. Like I said, sometimes with these smaller press things, Diamond just doesn't ship them or doesn't ship them on time. But either way, got 5. I also got 3 more True Believers Spider-Man number 1s, because for my, I'll show you that at the end. For my own alternate cover I'm doing with it, it's now going to be an edition of 13. I'll see if I can get up to 20, but I have to find some more True Believers number 1 Spider-Mans. So I got those, but I don't really count those just because I got a bunch of them last week, and they're for an art project. And Comic Shop News, the latest issue. I missed the Spider-Man comic strip in this being that is can't. Drawing Blood. Eastman's back in circulation with Drawing Blood, spilled ink. Okay. Guess this is on Kevin Eastman's new comic. I've noticed he's got a bunch of new stuff out, a few new comics out there, Kevin Eastman's, and his company. Some of it looks like the old Turtles stuff. So I guess this is an article on that. I can figure out what's out. I can't even remember what the names of them were, but Batman vs. Ra's al Ghul, House of Secrets. DC Comics, and those don't look like DC Comics coming in August. That looks like a DC comic that came many Augusts ago. Deceased, The Flash. So I guess we got stuff to read in this one. Oh, The Art of Eric Powell. Interesting book right there. Guy who does The Goon. Chandra, Baby Tooth, Their Evil Encounter. All right. Lots of stuff to check out here in this week's Comic Shop News. And then Spider-Man month continues in True Believers edition. We've got True Believers. Morbius. This is what? Spider-Man 101. Let's check the back. There we go. The original cover, Spider-Man 101. Good stuff. I haven't read this in a lot of years. I don't think I ever owned an original copy of it, but I read a reprint somewhere of it. It's been reprinted over the years. I don't even know where. Bring On the Bad Guys or something like that. I don't think it was in that one. But it was funny. Last week, the True Believers editions, what did I get? I got the Craven's Last Hunt first issue. That was good. Read that one before. As a matter of fact, I read it just a few years ago recently. The Web of Spider-Man 100, which was, I enjoyed that one. I never read a ton of 90s Spider-Man, and Web of Spider-Man 100 is going to be nobody's favorite Spider-Man issue or series, but it was a solid Spider-Man story. The real clunker of the batch was that Marvel team up with the second story with the black suit. Whew, I could not make it through that issue. That was some bad early 80s Spider-Man, or mid 80s that may have been. It was just like, whoo, that was tough to read. There was dialogue after dialogue that I couldn't get through, and it was like Spider-Man and Daredevil were trying to pin some crime on a gang leader, and there was like, it was just wow. I mean, I had stopped reading Marvel Team Up right around then, and now I remember why, because it was not a good comic. But this is a good comic right here. And then the other one, we got, I think I used to have this one too. True Believers, Amazing Spider-Man, what do they call this? The Sinister Secret of Spider-Man's Costume. What number is this? 258. Yeah, I had this. Haven't read it since the 80s, but I think it's just J.R. Jr. Not Ron Frenz. Tom DeFalco, Ron Frenz, and Joseph Rubinstein. Bob Sharon, colorist. Joe Rosen. Lettering reminds me. Here's another. Looking at the comics on the rack this week, and one caught my eye. I think it was called Sonata. Flipped it open. Brian Haberlin did the artwork. I was like, oh, this is not bad. I was looking through it. Maybe I was contemplating buying it. But then the lettering. The lettering on it was, I don't know who made the lettering choice, but the captions in that book had green backgrounds that were a gradient with a highlight in the middle. That meant if either end of the caption was darker green and it came to a white in the middle, and then the lettering was white with a little, I think it had a little black outline with a drop shadow on it. It was just nearly impossible to read. I'm like, who makes their... You made the caption so hard to read that I was just like, I'm putting this one back. I couldn't even deal with it. So it's like, sometimes they make lettering choices that baffle me. And as my friend Rob called it, what did he call it? The Arkham Asylum syndrome. If you ever read the original Arkham Asylum, the first printing, I think they changed it after it. That they had like red on black lettering for somebody, and it was nearly unreadable. I think for subsequent printings, they actually changed that because it was so unreadable. So was this first issue of this lettering. And I was just like, put it back on the shelf, couldn't even look at it anymore, going, who made that choice? The last True Believers we got is another strange thing happened with this one. Amazing Spider-Man and the Hulk. What issue was this? This was issue 328. Now that's weird. Now what's strange about this one? If you look at the gray in the Hulk, and they're all like this, it's moraying. Which means that, see that like pattern you can see in the Hulk? That's what happens when in printing, when the printing plates don't quite line up right. It creates little op art patterns. And matter of fact, if I looked at this with a loop, do I have a loop over here? I wonder. This is a photographer's loop. 10 times, and this is what you used to use for little contact sheets. But you also use it to look at printed matter. So you go up real, you need a lot of light for it. I don't see. Yeah, something's off register in there. But it's like they didn't recolor it right. Or maybe they did. But if you look at, I just glanced at this one inside, there's no moraying on the reprint of the original. That's all a proper gray tone laid down with little dots. And in this one, the little dots didn't line up right. So you get that weird checkerboard pattern, which is called a moire pattern. M-O-I-R-E, I think it is. But that's one of the things you never want to happen in your printing, is that pattern right there. So and you never see this anymore. Printing, especially with computers, this just doesn't happen. So I can't figure out. I'm like, why did that happen? That's just weird. But anyway, you're probably not even interested in that, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Then our last two are Gogor #2. I really liked the first issue of this by Keith Garing, who's the guy who did Planetoid. And I read this first digitally, the first issue, and then ordered it and put it on my pull list. And when I read it physically, it was even better than reading it digitally. Because sometimes, I got nothing against digital comics. I read some of them sometimes. But sometimes the page turns, when they work with the storytelling and the page turns, it just adds so much more to the experience. And the double page spreads. That's one of the problems with digital reading, is the double page spreads work opposite of how they're meant to. In that, when you open up a double page spread and print, it's like, boom, it's twice as big. But when you open up a double page spread in digital, it's half as big. So it's like, ooh. But the storytelling was it's just a fantasy story. This world where this kid lives, got into trouble. He rode this weasel or something, was his steed. These guys from another island came in to try and attack his island, and he had to wake this monster, Gogor, to save them all. He found some piece of paper, some old scroll that said he had to do it, and at the end of the first issue, Gogor came awake. So we'll see what happens with this one. And I assume it's a mini-series because the two Planetoid ones were 6-issue minis. Gogor 3 on sale. I was looking at Monster Fight in this one. But really, really liked the first issue of this. I am looking forward to the second. And then the last thing we got was The Life and Death of Toyo Harada, issue number 4. Little Andy Warhol riff there. And I must say, this is a $4.99 book, and it turns out I finally counted the pages last week, and there were like 38 pages of story, I think. And I was like, oh, that must be why it's $4.99, because it's actually fairly thin, so it doesn't feel thicker than normal, but there's more pages. But I've been enjoying the Toyo Harada story since Harbinger. Through Harbinger, through, what was the second one? All of a sudden, I can't remember the name of the second series. The Imperium, Harbinger, the Imperium, and now the Life and Death of Toyo Harada. He's the villain of the Valiant universe, and he's just an interesting guy. He's just trying to make the world better, but the world doesn't want to be better. So it's good stuff. It's flashback. In fact, he's lived. He first discovered his what I guess are mutant powers in the Valiant universe, like during the bombing of Hiroshima. So he's been around. He was a little kid then, and he's been around since then as an psiots. That's what they're called, not mutants. Psiots, as an alpha level psiot. So it's just. There's all sorts of world geopolitics in this and superhero fights, and I just like it a whole lot. Okay, so now let me show you the artwork I got done. That's going to be for my own self-made, self-bound Amazing Spider-Man. I ended up, because I can't do things the easy way, I ended up doing 2 covers, so I guess I'm going to make it a flip cover. So it's going to be 2. This is the first one where, as you see, whoops, hey, don't you fall. This is kind of my weird version of a Spider-Man cover. This is like the Fantastic Four's in it, the Chameleon, J. Jonah Jameson, and I kind of worked this in. I kind of turned one of my spontaneous ink drawings into these strange spider. I'm going to drop a small logo in over here, have a little bit of a trade dress up top, and I have to color the whole thing. But then, of course, I somehow got it in my head I had to do 2 of them, so I had to try and do a more standard pin-up sort of Spider-Man cover. But of course I had to add a little pizzazz to it. And I actually had a lot harder time doing this than that. Despite this being a much more complicated, more characters, a much more complicated composition, I'm just not used to doing sort of straightforward superhero drawing sort of stuff. I haven't done it in a long time, but that's what I came up with. I even had, like I said, I couldn't even do it that straightforward. I had to add all, this is sort of a riff on his spider sense, but really done as a sort of a just sort of decorative element with all the bubbles in the background and some sort of planet back there, which is a riff on my deep space covers, and some of my op art lines I add to a lot of my stuff. So I'm going to color both of these up, print them out on a print, wrap them, pull the staples out of this, wrap it around, restaple it, and make my own alternate covers, which I'll be posting on eBay probably. So whenever I get it finished, I'll let you know. And you guys all have a good week out there.